Mars War Logs is a much better game than its generic name and equally generic logo would suggest. Rather than a dire, lifeless affair, this is a surprisingly smart experience which understands world-building, characterization, and cyberpunk to a commendable degree. It is immediately emotional, atmospheric, and engaging, opening on a tired, war-torn child appropriately named Innocence, through whose eyes we see the world. He is, in effect, the game's pet conscience. Everything you do as the main character, you must see reflected upon Innocence. And speaking of the main character, there actually is one. He doesn't have amnesia, and he's not a generic everyman. He's an actual guy with a real personality who has meaningful ideas and the resilience to see them through. His grizzled determination contrasts exceptionally well with Innocence's, innocence. The game also thankfully neglects to dump exposition about these characters and likewise avoids exposition too much in general. So many action RPGs start the same way, with the same overwhelmingly obvious pandering narrative structure. Mars War Logs avoids this pitfall by letting you discover the world at your own pace. There's no shortage of lore to sift through, but there's also very few moments where the story and pacing stop dead to preach in your ear. The opening scene is mopey, character-driven, and mood-setting, rather than obnoxiously overbearing. It was a good choice, and it well establishes the dusty, dire, desperate outlook of this world and its people. The first location is equally brilliant, as you're dropped into a fairly small POW camp and forced to familiarize yourself with your surroundings. There are an abundance of side quests, sure, but more than that, this place feels alive. Both sides of the conflict are just people, and they're all just tired. No one here is portrayed in an excessively cartoonish or villainous fashion. The character writing is punching well above its weight, as is the setting. This is a closed-world game, where you wander around and complete non-linear objectives, but it's all rather contained. While many might see this as a downside, I believe it is a great asset. So many massive ARPGs struggle to make their worlds feel alive, because the larger scale necessitates simpler dialogue, less detailed environs, and fewer memorable people or places. But as you're seeing right now, you needn't have a massive budget to do good work. This dingy, rusted, dilapidated collection of vertically stacked shacks feels just as real as any AAA adventure epic. It's good stuff. It would be incorrect to say that the gameplay is wholly in service to the atmosphere, themes, and setting, but it is used thoughtfully. Many action RPGs overemphasize the combat and turn the experience into a mess of violence and numbers, wherein you're not really engaging with a world, just stomping ants with health bars. Mars War Logs sidesteps this. The combat feels dirty, direct, and impactful, introducing a myriad of meaningful enemy types and thoughtfully designed arenas which never break immersion. There are a ton of options at your disposal, even early on, and all of them were genuinely enjoyable to experiment with. In spite the simplicity, this is good action, and most battles are justified by the narrative, especially early on. There are some hiccups here and there, particularly involving an absolutely miserable camera and equally miserable enemy AI, but those are practically genre staples. I'm hesitant to spoil too much, but Mars War Logs is a passionate ARPG with a meaningful level and crafting system, rich atmosphere, carefully constructed characters, and perhaps most importantly, it understands the difference between being grim and being misanthropic, which, that's actually saying something.